while we're waiting for other people to join in. I'm actually going to turn off my camera while I'm talking just because I fidget like mad and I don't want that on camera. So feel free to turn your cameras off if you want. I don't mind at all. It's whatever you guys are comfortable with. It's really nice to see so many people here today, and I hope you enjoy the session. Feel free to ask questions, and I want it to be as interactive as we can. I've got a few activities as part of the session. If you hover your mouse at the top of the screen, the black drop-down box comes up. Under Annotate, there's an option called Stamp. We'll be using that at several points throughout the presentation. So if you can familiarise yourself with that while we wait, give us a shout if you don't quite get what's going on. But we're using two different tools today. One's the Annotate and two's the Menti. If you guys are all ready, if you want to give us a thumbs up in the chat, that would be handy, just so I know that you guys are good to go. And it's not in the chat, is it? It's under participants. You can, under more, put your thumb up or down. So if you're ready, thumbs up and get started. I've got a handful, I've got to wait for a few more. Okay, Jazander, if you go to the top of the screen, there's a black bar that comes down. It's got mute, start video, participants, new screen, pause, annotate, remote control. So it's on there under the annotate. It's a pencil. Some computers, I think, call it different. It might be draw or doodle if you're, depending on the type of computer you're on. And then when you click on it, there's an option for mouse select, text, draw, stamp, spotlight, erase. Has that helped at all? Are you, the black box you described doesn't come up on mine. Are you on a tablet or a phone? Cool, someone's drawing already. I've just seen a line go across the screen. Cool, so it might be called view options. Okay, so Valerie's kind of said that it might be under view options. Does that work for you? What we can do is clear all drawings. If you can't find the option, what we'll do is if you put it in the chat box, and we'll take that into account while we're doing it. Cool, I think there's a few people jumping in to help, which is fantastic. Cool. We are gonna get clear all drawings and I'm gonna get started. So thanks for joining my session, everybody. I'm gonna be exploring getting the foundations right for student volunteering groups. Cool. I think a lot of people have worked out how the things work now. But what we'll do is we'll go with as many as we can using it, but if not, just pop things in the chat. So we're going to start off by looking at where you guys all come from. So I can see that 7 of you are from universities and 9 of you are from students' unions, so that's good to know. And moving on to the next slide, that I can see that 4 of you don't work with student-led groups, but 12 of you do. So that's good to know that most people are in a similar sort of situation, and I know kind of how to frame this session. Jazander and Amy, I'm sorry that you can't access the annotate options at the moment, but if you, when it comes to needing to annotate, there's only one slide. If you can just answer in the chat box, we'll go from there, okay? So I've had quite a long journey with student-led volunteering groups as well as member-led volunteering groups. I started off while I was at uni with Discovery Student Volunteering. They delivered a fantastic presentation this morning. So any of you who made that session will understand a little bit about them, but they're a student-led charity based at the University of Swansea. During my time at Swansea University, I also volunteered with the Royal Life Saving Society, which is a members-led organisation. I started doing my grad scheme at the Royal National Lifeboat Institute in Charity Sector Leadership and Management, where I developed skills in change management and continuous improvement, which has really inspired how I now work with volunteering groups. And then I moved on to work at the University of Exeter Student Guild as a volunteer coordinator with Exeter Student Volunteers. And I'm now based at the University of Bath Students' Union, working with the volunteering department, predominantly looking after V-Team student volunteers. So I've got quite a bit of a history of working with student-led and community-led volunteering groups, and I've helped develop them as I go along. I think that's something that I really found enjoyment in and passion in, and I'm hoping that I can share some of the things I've done with you all as a team, and we can then go from there. So feel free to ask questions as we're going along. I don't mind. I've got the chat box up and I will answer as many as I can. So the aims of today's session is, what do I mean about getting the foundations right? What is a volunteer journey? Aims and objectives of your group, and looking a little bit more at your group structures. So I want to start off with this image of a patchwork quilt. Our volunteer groups they're colourful, they're amazing, they're all these amazing bits and pieces pulled together, put together. But over time, projects get taken away, processes change, new things are put in, there's patch fix, there's holes that get left because you no longer have particular elements that you used to have. But regardless of if your group is working or not, it's always worth going back to the drawing board, especially now with COVID, where we're limited on some of the activities that we can do. So now is a really good year to kind of do like a spring clean of your volunteer group and kind of go back to the drawing board and throw ourselves into what we can do once restrictions lift and ease, so we can go in at full speed and do some amazing work, more amazing than we've been doing previously. So as I've said, over time things change, get added, taken away, and it leaves gaps or create patches in your volunteering group. Going back to the drawing board is a great way to reevaluate and enhance the experience for your students and the community. Problems can occur over time when things are added and change. So you'll have committee roles that are kind of hangovers from previous implementations of your group. I particularly found that in Exeter, they had a committee of about 14, and the majority of the roles no longer had things to do because the work wasn't there, because what they do changed, but they never changed their aims or their structure and things accordingly to how the group had naturally developed over time. So it's good to go back to the drawing board and kind of make things, kind of streamline things again and make things easier for students. Students' time is incredibly valuable. And for me, coming from that journey of being a student volunteer myself, for me, I want to be hands-on with projects. I want to be out in the community, and I get that feel from students that they want to be participatory volunteering rather than necessarily always planning and delivering. I don't think the planning stage should take longer than the delivery. So I want things to be nice and streamlined for students, so they spend more time hands-on delivering activity. So I want to make their lives easier and basically help them achieve more by doing less, which is my general tagline that I go to in my volunteering groups. So what is your volunteering journey? So this is a chance for you guys to have a think. What is the journey of your volunteer? So what's the start? What's the end? What have you guys got in the middle? So just have a think about it for a minute. I know it's going to be hard for us all to feedback, so don't feel like we have to, but I'm going to give an example in a minute, but just take this moment to have a think. Once you've had a chance to have a think, can you either put thumbs up if you think you can think of what your journey is nice and clearly from start to finish, or thumbs down if you think it's a bit rocky and you're not sure of all the stages of it? What are we thinking? So I've got a couple of thumbs up. And that's in the chat box rather than on the screen, because I can't actually see you in person. So I'm starting to get a combination, which is, it's good. Even if you are in a position where you do know your journey, there's still always ways that we can look at it and simplify it. Just because there is a clear journey doesn't mean it's the shortest point from A to B. So thank you everyone that's fed back on that. So I'm just juggling where I'm keeping the participants box, the chat box, and the the views of everyone while also being able to see all my notes. Thanks, Francis, for putting in the instructions for how people can find it. Has everyone found it okay? Hope so. So last night I jotted down a really simple volunteer journey. But students find out about your opportunity and sign up. There might be induction and training. They select the activity they want to do. They start volunteering. There's ongoing recognitions, and then eventually they depart. For us at a university, it tends to follow that cycle of the university year, although some people do drop out throughout the year. Not everyone follows through on all the steps and drop out before they even start volunteering, before they move to stage of recognition, before they even select activity they want to participate on. They might only just do induction and training. But it's really good to have your journey written down somewhere and look at each of the stages and make sure, is your sign up process clear, easy? Is it easy for people to understand? Is your training and your induction, is it clear what the steps need to be? I found when I was working out of Exeter, students didn't know what the journey was to get from I'm interested in something to going out on a project. Even the project leaders didn't fully understand what that process was. So one of the first things I came in and did with them was map out what is the pathway for a student, so that when a student decided they want to volunteer, they could see what the clear journey was from signing up to getting out on a project. And what we managed to do was we've managed to get from the volunteer sign up stage to the start of volunteering down to, it didn't take longer than 2 weeks unless they needed a DBS check, but we'd still offer them other opportunities in the short time. Before that, you had people 3-4 weeks in still not knowing what training they had to do or what other projects there were. So by going back and mapping out a clear journey so volunteers know what their step-by-steps are, taking them past volunteering, how to log their hours if that's something you do, how they can be recognised, what they can work towards, further opportunities such as project leaders, trustees for some organisations, or management committees, whatever you guys want to call it. It's nice to have this full journey mapped out so that they understand, you understand. If someone comes up to you completely random and says, how do I get from here to here? You can say it nice and easily, and it removes as many barriers as possible for students. Okay, this is the activity now where we're going to have you using your annotate options. So I've got 2 questions for you. Who knows their volunteer group's aims in full? Can you use one of the annotation stamps and put on yes or no whether you know what your student group aims are in full? So that's under the top bar where the screen sharing says annotate, stamps, and then select one of yours. Okay, so we've got a nice mix starting to come in. I can see that. Okay, so we've got Amy and Jazander have said no, so I'm going to put an extra heart or 2 extra hearts on that one for them. Cool, someone's drawing letters on, perfect. To be fair, have fun with the annotations, do what you like with them, have a play, because I want people to learn and develop new skills that they can use themselves with students later on in the year. Everything's a learning opportunity. That's why I like to bring new tech into things. It might make it a little bit more complicated on the session, but everyone leaves learning something they didn't expect to learn. Okay, so I can see that there's a nice big mix between who can name what their group aims are and who can't. The next one is a bit of an interesting question. If you met someone in a lift and you're on the ground floor, how many floors would you have to go up before you've finished explaining your aims to that individual? So it doesn't matter if you can't remember it. If you've got it on a bit of paper in front of you, how many floors do you have to go up before you've managed to say what your group's aim is? Mm-hmm. I'm going to come in now and be that annoying person and say, my student groups now do theirs in one. When you're talking to people at student fairs, so I've got 2 more 2 to 3s from Amy and Jasander, so I'm popping them on now as well. When you're talking to people at fairs, you don't have a couple of minutes. You've got a student come to you, you might have 15 seconds with them, and you want to be able to portray what your group does, whether that's your students, whether that's you supporting them, however it is that you do your recruitment. We need to be able to easily sell that passion, sell that enthusiasm, so people can buy in to essentially what you're selling. You're selling a volunteering opportunity to them. They need to be able to say, wow, I really relate to that. I want to be involved in that. And we need to be able to do that in a quick, sharp, snappy way. The last 2 organisations I've been with, well, I've been in Exeter, now I've been in Bath. When I've started, their aims and objectives have been over an A4 page. They're long, they're wordy, they're not inspiring, and they don't mean anything. It's things like, we will follow charity law, it's all things that a lot of things that go without saying. So what we've done in both places is I led student-led kind of evaluation sessions of the aims and objectives. We pulled out what was key, what was important, what was inspiring. And we've managed to boil it down to, I've got to remember to clear the slide because otherwise they will follow across. So Bath V Team, their new vision is that the University of Bath has a culture of volunteering, enabling students to engage with meaningful opportunities and contribute to their local community, which is summarised in the aim of to build relationships between students, locals through compassionate, inclusive and sustainable projects that focus on improving the lives of those around us. Yes, it's still a bit of a mouthful, but it's a lot shorter. It kind of portrays what the group's doing, and it gives you something that you're like, actually, I really believe in that. I want to get behind that. I want to get involved. That sounds really fun. That aligns with what I believe in. I've got the student group have come up with their own objectives for the year. So they've got 3 objectives that are like their key ways that are going to work towards that, which means every year the committee have that opportunity to leave their mark. They get to say how they're working towards that aim, how they're working towards that vision. So they get that opportunity to leave their mark without going back to the drawing boards on the full aims and objectives, full aims and vision every year. Also, by narrowing down the aims, it means you can be a little bit more selective with your projects. It means you can select your volunteering activity in line with what your group believes. So it's not saying yes to everything. Quite often volunteering groups feel obligated to say yes to any opportunity that's offered to them, whether it's too much work for them, whether their students aren't interested. And I think sometimes that pulls the group in so many different directions that they kind of lose track of what they're there for. It's not saying that we're going to say no to everything. It gives them that little bit more framework and structure to say, actually, that opportunity doesn't fit in with what we want to do and what we want to achieve. So thank you, but no thank you. It gives them that little bit more of some backing to also go out and say, this is the opportunities we're looking for. Have you got something that can help us reach these aims, to kind of retailer and give meaningful opportunities back to the students. So I know I'm going a little bit fast through this, but I haven't really spoken to anyone today. So trying to re-pitch myself. Talking to yourself, you talk at any speed you want, really, don't you? To have a committee or to have a student leader, that is always a big question when working with student groups. There's pros and cons to both. I know that all of you can tell me 101 stories about positives of committees, positives of student leaders, but also the complete flip side of committee horror stories and committee student leader horror stories, sort of thing. With the way that we've redeveloped V-Team in Bath, we've condensed the committee down to a core 5, and we've elevated them to act more like a trustee board. Although V-Team isn't its own separate charity, it's part of the Students' Union, it is a volunteering group, we've elevated their importance to look at more governance of the group, to take them off of like the hands-on having to do everything in the day-to-day. That's what their staff support are there to do. That's what I'm here to support with. I'm here to help them achieve what they want to achieve. Previously, they'd spread themselves so thin, they had to be involved in everything because that's the way the structure was set up for them. Now they set the direction, they set what sort of projects they want, how they want things to work. I then work with project leaders that lead each of the projects to help the committee fulfill their vision for the group. It frees them up to have more time to either be project leaders as well, spend more time out on projects so that they can be hands-on with the community and they're not sat planning, organising and making sure that everything's happening. A lot of that is they will tell me what to do, which a lot of them really enjoy, because they get to come in and say, actually, we really want this to happen. And I say, how would you like me to make that happen? And I sit with them. They will set the direction of like, we want this to happen. So kind of like a management board talking to a project manager, so to speak, sort of thing. They'll set the guidance and direction. I will help them achieve that vision, working with the project leaders so that it's student-led at every level. Previously, where they were running all the events and they were managing all the volunteers, there were loads of times where I had to step in and support because either they were too stretched, timetables didn't allow it, project leaders dropped out, and it wasn't allowing for things to be student-led, because where I was stepping in or being called to step in, I believe it was taking away from that student-led element, which I really passionately believe in. So now it allows the committee to be unrestricted by, if one project starts to go wrong, it's not got a knock-on effect on all the other activities, which we found last year. As soon as one project started wobbling, that monopolised the time of the committee, and then that had a knock-on effect for all the events throughout the year. Now all the events are kind of ring-fenced with separate project leaders, that if one starts to go wrong, it doesn't affect all the other events. So that there's room to grow, develop, and have stronger activity throughout the year, and hopefully a better student experience for the students involved. So that's kind of the end of my key points. I kind of want the rest to be more of an open discussion, so I will stop sharing my screen in a minute and let everyone put their mics on, ask questions, have a talk and see what they think. Challenge me on any concepts that you don't agree with, tell me how you think I could have done things better, also to ask questions on how you could do things that suit your group. But for me, I want everything to be student-led. That's what I'm here to support. Students have amazing ideas, they have this amazing passion and drive to help the community, and I want to do everything I can to enable them to do that. So that's what I've done with this, helping them go back to basics to help make things easier for them again, is to make sure that it stays student-led. How do we give students more time to be active in their volunteering? That is the big question that I ask myself with everything that we're doing. Is this allowing students to spend more time on projects, or is it taking them away from actively being on activities that are benefiting the community, or are they stuck in the planning stage? Make your volunteer journey clear. Students are so busy now, they've got so many conflicting demands of their time. It's how do we make it nice and simple and accessible for them, that they can do high quality opportunities with real good impact, with the minimalist needed involvement, with possibilities to scale up their involvement if they want to. Simple aims so everyone can get behind what's going on and pick what works for your group and your students. We have a committee that overarches the projects, but then we have project leaders that develop the project activity. That works for us. I'm not saying it will work for you. You need to do what works for you to keep it student-led, to keep it so that students have more time to be active. I'm not selling this is the model to work with. I'm selling the questions that I've asked myself and my groups so that they can reach the best decision of what works for them. My last slide is I'm putting hearts all over the place. Here's my email address, volunteers@bath.ac.uk. Feel free to contact me. I love a good chat. So if you want to have a conversation, more than happy to pick up the phone or put in a Zoom call. But what I would like to do now is give everyone the opportunity to have a chat, do a bit of a network, ask questions and share success stories of working with your student groups and how you've cemented the foundations of your groups, and give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. See if I can get my screen back. Why are you, sorry, 2 seconds everyone, I can't, there we go. Trying to get everything up on my screen. Cool, I can see questions starting to come in, perfect. Okay, have you gone through moments where students are not motivated and you simply don't have enough projects on the go? If yes, have you dealt with it? Yeah. I think For me, I'm going to have a bit of a cop-out with that answer. I've not necessarily been in role long enough to experience that problem yet. As a student, yes, we have projects that need to go out and we don't have enough volunteers that are engaged. But as Discovery said this morning, they're lucky enough to generally have quite a large reserve of people that want to participate in activities. In Exeter, it was a similar case. Students wanted to volunteer, but it was really hard to get onto activities. So for us, it was making it easier for them to access it. But it's also having a pool of reserve people that you can pull on. If your committee aren't as busy with their main activities, they'll want to go out on activities. And if you turn around and say, I'm short a volunteer, one of them will happily jump at the chance if they've got the free time. And by freeing up the admin time for them, they now have that time to say it. They're not overstretched. They're not overstressed. So by making it accessible and minimal time commitment for, like, it's the important but sometimes dull bits, but it's how to kind of streamline that, and that makes people more time to be able to actually go out with the activities. If in doubt, I go out because they're good fun too. How do you recruit your committee and or project leads? If it is you who recruits them, what are the qualities you look for these roles, and how do you make sure they're going to be committed? Okay, that's a really good question, Francis. So the V Team committee is elected through student elections. That happens every year, just like with all student-led groups, which most of you have with societies, sports teams, things like that you interact with as well. There is an element of we will approach people that we think are going to be good for the role and encourage them to run. The committee do that, other volunteers do that. So if we think there's someone that has shown a real good aptitude and we think would be outstanding, we make sure we know that we really think you'll do a good job. Please put yourself forward. So obviously we don't vote, we can't have a say in it, but we can encourage people to go for roles. In terms of project leaders, we've opened up our recruitment window starting in about a month's time. We're going to start, 2 weeks actually, it starts September. We're going to do an application process. So it's being led by the committee with my support. There's going to be people going to fill in a short application form to say that they want to be a project leader, what sort of projects they're interested in, and they'll tell us a little bit about themselves. They'll then be invited to a virtual interview, which normally would be physical, but current guidelines means we need to do it virtually. And then we will pick the best person based on how they come across an interview. That'll be predominantly led with the students, with me being on hand to support them with the best practice, but the decision will be down to them. It's going to be the engagement officers that will be doing the interviews, but once they've made the decisions, we'll take the final list to the committee just so it gets that kind of final tick of approval of, yes, we're happy with those decisions. I'm not seeing any major problems in thinking that they won't have made a good decision. How does funding for student-led projects work for you and others? Do they have to apply for funding or simply get it? How much immediately or small parts at a time? It completely varies and depends. They do, so V-Team do a handful of fundraising events through the year. They do an event called Santa Dash, which is their main fundraiser. It raises about £1,000 a year. It's a 5K run dressed as Santa, and lots of students from out the university participate. So we target sports students to participate in the event, whereas volunteers marshal the event and help plan it, set it up. So that's a good way to bring funds in. We've also got students running the Bath Half. That brings further funds in for the group. We apply for the Student Community Partnership funds and then other pots of local funding that can help with projects and activities. We also work in partnership with other charities, so quite often projects don't have costs attached because the charity themselves are covering that, although we'll lead an element of what they're doing. How do you train volunteers to, or how do you manage quality working relationships between charities and student groups? Training is going to be up in the air this year, so we're going back to the drawing board. So I don't think I can give you too clear an answer on that because I'm still in the middle of planning it. I've seen some fantastic things that you guys all do, so I'll be using elements of what I've seen delivered by other people. In part, I'm going to be planning a short training session for the exec, just in like the new trustee style board, to go over what this year is going to look like and how that's different to what they've worked with previously. We'll also then look at how do we empower them to take action and have their own opinions, because the whole point of having them as an exec board is actually they've got their views, they have an idea of direction, and they're not just defaulting to me. If they're just going to default to what I want to do, it's not student-led. And as much as I like my ideas, I don't want them to just want my ideas. I want them to have their own direction, their own passion. And we've had some amazing students this year join our exec committee. One of them is currently on a year industry with a children's charity in London, and the ideas that she's coming back with are just outstanding, and it is looking at how do we action them and how do we put those into practice. In terms of quality working relationships between charities and the student groups, some of that is I help facilitate that relationship, so that there is this ongoing relationship with the charities that myself, my co-workers, so Kika, who some of you might have met in other sessions, she's the other volunteer coordinator, then our manager Anna. Between us, we've got quite good relationships with those local charities, so we'll kind of hold that relationship, but we'll introduce the students to them and then we'll help them facilitate that partnership working. So we kind of keep that relationship strong, so that when the student leaves each year or the project leaders change over, then that relationship doesn't fall apart and need to be rebuilt again. So we'll maintain, and then the students come in and benefit from that relationship. What student groups are looking to set up new projects? What does the process look for you? I like what you said about getting them started as soon as possible. I'm wondering how you streamline this. So V Team, I think, were very unique in the sense of, I've always found students are great with projects, but one-off events always seem to be a bit of a struggle to run loads of different individual events. V Team were the complete opposite. They had loads of individual events, but didn't have much regular activity. So what we've done for next year is we've grouped lots of individual events together to form projects. Where we had 3 running-based projects, so as the Santa Dash, Colour Run, Bath Half, we now grouped that together to be a running-based fundraising project, which will have 1 leader for the, well, 2 leaders for the year, who will then support and they will develop and grow. So our plan this year is we're going to really invest and develop our project leaders so they get stronger throughout the year. So instead of they'll come in, do a short project, they might succeed, they might fail, they might hit stumbling blocks, but actually they'll do that for their first event, but then the second event they'll learn from it, they'll grow, they'll develop, they'll build on that, and they'll get better and better throughout the year. Because it's really good to give them that opportunity to find out how they can grow, how they can develop, how they can change their style. And I think for student leaders, that's really important. Leading one event is good, it does develop skills, but having that opportunity to have another go at it if something's gone wrong, even if something's gone right, to see that cycle and to keep building, to keep growing and developing. So that's how we're going to do that with them this year. So we're looking at starting the year with about 15 projects, which is grouping previous events, working with some local charities that we work closely with anyway to realign how things can be more student-led with activity rather than charity-led. So it's kind of asking the charities nicely to help us shift some of that power to sit with the students, let them make a few more decisions rather than just turn up and deliver. Did that answer your question, Em? I can't see where you are on the screen, so if you can put a thumb up, because I feel like I waffled quite a bit. Perfect, thank you. So Gail, do you help find projects have a bank of good do you help find projects / have a bank of good projects that they can involve with, or do they students find them themselves? This is kind of where I differ from other student-led organisations. I'm personally a big fan of the staff member helping to source the project and setting them up. From my experience, I feel that where we've got more time, closer relationships with the charities, and we're here throughout the whole year, we can put the time and the effort into really develop some really meaningful opportunities for students to lead on. Where I've worked on both sides, but I've quite often find with students setting up projects, by the time they've got it to a stage where they can set it up, establish a relationship, built that trust with the charity to say, look, can I be trusted with your service users to do this? Quite often it can be lower level and not necessarily as meaningful for the volunteers participating in that activity. So I try and keep it a bit of a balance. Like if students want to set up a project, they've got connections, they've got links, they want to, I help them do it. But also I work in the background to take the ideas of the exec and say, look, what activities do you want? What sort of projects do you want? And I then go and source that opportunity with them, working with charity partners to come up with real high quality opportunities for the students. So yeah, I know that is a little bit controversial in opinions for student-led organisations, but I think the means justifies the ends. It gives them a better quality of opportunity, a better way to develop, a better way to benefit their community. So I think it's a fair trade-off in that situation. can you explain the difference between the role of the committee members and the project leaders? So we have a 5-person exec, which are the elected members to lead the student groups. For us, our student groups have to be democratically elected. So we have a 5 individual exec made up of a chair, treasurer, a secretary, and 2 engagement officers. They kind of act like a trustee board for the wider V team group. They set the direction they want the charity to go in. They help facilitate the aims, objectives, ideas for projects. They help with volunteer recruitment. So they do like the real top level governance side of things. So that's a bit of a change. Previously, they've organised and pretty much done everything, down to recruit individual event leaders, train the event leaders, and then help them deliver events. Whereas now we're separating them out. So they're going to do top level, act like trustees. And then we've got individual project leaders that will work on the day-to-day runnings of individual projects. So we're kind of splitting up that workload, but also really emphasizing on training, upskilling and developing of those leaders so they can run really good quality opportunities, giving the exec the opportunity to develop strategic and governance skills, while also looking at having time to be a project leader. They can be both if they want to, because they're no longer conflicting roles. They're no longer so time intensive that they're not stuck in one. I found last year the committee was it was quite large. I can't remember the exact number now. I know I gave you a number earlier, but it's blanked. They spent more time planning and delivering that actually most of them didn't go out on any project activity. And for me, I find that really sad. For me, the thing I loved about being a student volunteer was working with service users, being out on the projects. And I think to have a whole committee that spent an entire year pretty much not being able to go out because they were too busy with the other stuff is heartbreaking, because that's not what they signed up for. Yes, they want to plan. Yes, they want to help deliver these events, but they want to go out. They want to volunteer. They want to have fun. That's what they're here for. And I don't think anyone should be, this year, sat behind a computer and not able to actually actively participate because their workload's too high or causing too much stress. I think that's a really good point about helping to source projects. We don't have student-led projects, but constantly get feedback from students they've established volunteering roles, which they have applied for with organisations, take much longer to get started than imagined. Yeah, I think that's fair. One of the things that we do as well is we have a volunteering opportunities module, Francis. So we advertise opportunities that local charities have. One of the things I spend a lot of time trying to work with them on is explaining how the university year works and trying to make it short, like, look, our students are great, they can do some great stuff, but these are the windows you've got them for. I had one charity come forward saying, well, we need them to do 6 months worth of training, then we want a year's commitment from them. And I'm like, nah, soz. There's no point. Like, they're not going to be here. They're gone at Christmas. They're probably not here in the summer. By the time you've done the training, they're going to have dropped out. You're saying that you've got a high dropout rate from our students. You can kind of see why. So I spend a lot of time explaining to them how the university year works. If they're advertising an annual opportunity, I'm like, this is the end of term. Realistically, this is when they're going to want to leave. Yes, you might have some great students that want to stay past that date, but that's unlikely. Yes, we have some students around in the holidays, but again, it's not the norm. So it's kind of setting those charity expectations and saying, look, we can provide some great students for you, but you need to understand how their year works and how it differs from people who aren't in university. So quite often I get them to, it's like, come on, think back to when you were at university. What was your year like? When were you active? When were you not? And then with a few of those nudges and prompts, like, we can then really develop opportunities and supplement the time of the year when they're not there with community-based volunteers. And yes, we've not necessarily had as many opportunities as we would previously, but every opportunity we put out is then appropriate for students to do. The charity is going to be happy that the relationship is correct and right for them. And sometimes it's better to say no up front than actually let them try a 2-month recruitment process to find out they've had someone drop out, because it's wasting everyone's time, the students and the charities. And sometimes it's better to say no, it doesn't work for us, than to overpromise. Are your projects mostly brand new, or do they align student projects around more existing programs of volunteering roles, of which there is already an infrastructure? So at the moment, we're tagging loads of previous events together. So majority of the projects for next year, I'd say 3/4 of them are existing events that have been grouped to be like groups of activity rather than individual elements of activity. So although the projects are technically new, the events are current events that students would have seen, and a lot of them would have volunteered on different elements of different ones of them, but it's wrapping them up to be more of a community feel within individual areas. So we're grouping the regular litter picks together. So instead of having 6 independent litter picks with 6 independent project leaders, we've now got one project leader who will lead all 6 for the year, and hopefully have a committed group that will follow them through, also bringing in new people on the way as people want to. Yes, we're looking at fitting some new projects in as well. We're working with an amazing charity called Wiltshire Mighty Girls, and we're looking to set up a youth group with them. It's something they've been looking to set up for a while. They're going to take the main lead on like the responsibility of it, but our students are then going to provide activities and take an ownership role over helping provide a meaningful environment where the local girls can become more empowered in themselves and have some really cool activities. Hope that answers that question, Chris. So if anyone wants to physically say stuff, feel free to as well. Turn your microphone off, shout something out at me, challenge a statement that I've said, give an alternative view. I think you guys are as much the expert on this field as I am. I wouldn't say any of us are better than anyone else in it. If someone else has a different answer to any of these questions, please feel free to share it. This is my experience. This is how I've worked with things. That's not saying I'm right. That's just saying I would like to share what I've done with you guys to see what you guys might want to pick up. I know I don't always get things right. I'd like to think I do. I know I
don't. I think that you know, Joshua has shared his email as well, and you can get in contact with the SVN. Obviously, you know, feel free to get in contact. If you still have any questions, feel free to write them on the chat. For me, I have to say it was really interesting to see your own experience of working with students. And I feel like universities, student unions, and I've worked at a variety of universities as well, and it's very different the way that student-led groups work, and you know, how varied the student groups are as well. So it's been really, really interesting, Joshua. Thank you so much for sharing. We still have 5 minutes if anyone wants to ask any questions. Joshua is still around, of course. If no one has any questions, am I correct in assuming, Joshua, that we can end up the session?
Yeah, I just thought of one more thing that might be useful for you guys. It's quite quick. One of the things I find really beneficial in my role, other than this network itself, I think this network's fantastic. Look for your local charity ones as well. So I work with a local organisation called 3SG, which is the third sector group for Bath and North East Somerset. They exist in all different formats of like councils for voluntary services, local volunteer centres. Really work with them. They're fantastic. So I work really closely with the director of the Bath-based one. I've got some fantastic connections from that. He's in those different conversations that I'm not in. It really pulls together community work, and it really kind of puts us in the centre of the community. And it's really good to be able to pull on relationships that I don't have to form relationships quicker. So it's definitely something to look at if you guys want to develop faster. I know the volunteer staff in Bristol have like a Bristol Volunteer Coordinators Forum that they go to. Totally pull on those other networks. Like, I think when you're in volunteering, networking is the best thing you can do. Yeah. I know you don't have time to, but definitely try and embrace it.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm the girl that literally goes to every single kind of network I mean, I go to Volunteering Ireland, you know, volunteering meetings. I definitely am not Irish. I do not live in Ireland. I do not work in Ireland, but you know, they're fantastic. I think one of the last things to say then is that, you know, the Student Volunteering Network is currently still accepting applications for its committee. I think the application deadline finishes tomorrow. If anyone wants to know more, the website is available, or feel free to drop me an email as well with any questions that you might have. The SVN committee is the committee that kind of helps bring all of the regions in the UK together, but anyone can be a part of it. And it means that you will have an input in, you know, how you can bring people together in sharing good practice, in sharing advice and all of that. Otherwise, feel free to just keep participating yeah, in everything that we do.
This is the last session today. Can I say thank you to you, Mariana, for organising all of this, being in all the sessions this week. You've done a fantastic job. Like,
thank you.
You put so much work in behind the scenes, and these sessions have all been really useful. I really like the 10:30 in the morning ones because I could sit in bed and listen to them. But thank you for organising all this. I'm going to speak on everyone's behalf, which, sorry if you don't like what I say, but thank you so much. You've done a great job, and I know we all really appreciated it.
Thank you very much. Now it's been great to having all of you here, and I can see the names because I've been going to all of them. I recognize them. They've been here. So honestly, guys, thank you so much. And I mean, I have left my email before, but feel free to contact me and anything that you need to know about the committee or anything that we might be able to organize again that might be useful. Please, yeah, to let me know. Yeah, cool. So thank you so much. I hate to end the session before everyone leaves. So you are authorized to go. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of our first online conference. It was lovely meeting you all, and I'll speak to all of you very, very soon. Have an amazing day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for being around. Thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing day. Bye, Abby. All right. Abby, is there anything that I can still help you with? Is everything, do you have any specific questions?